in the production and use of toxic chemicals for warfare. The Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, OPCW, is an international organization that works to promote the destruction of chemical weapons and prevent their use. The OPCW oversees the implementation of the Chemical Weapons Convention and works to verify the destruction of chemical weapons stockpiles. The implementation of international agreements and the promotion of transparency and accountability can help to prevent the production and use of toxic chemicals for warfare. However, challenges remain in enforcing these agreements and ensuring compliance, particularly in regions of conflict where the rule of law may be weak. Efforts to prevent the production and use of toxic chemicals for warfare must also be accompanied by efforts to promote disarmament and nonproliferation. The continued existence of chemical weapons stockpiles and the potential for their use highlights the need for continued efforts to promote disarmament and nonproliferation. In order to reduce the risk of chemical weapons falling into the wrong hands. Another challenge in preventing the production and use of toxic chemicals for warfare is the development of new and more potent chemical agents. Advances in chemistry and technology have led to the development of new toxic chemicals that are more lethal and more difficult to detect than traditional chemical weapons. For example, Novichok agents are a group of nerve agents that were developed in the Soviet Union in the 1970s and 1980s. Novichok agents are highly lethal and can be more difficult to detect than traditional nerve agents such as sarin and VX. The development of new and more potent chemical agents highlights the need for ongoing research and development efforts to detect and identify these agents, as well as the need for continued efforts to promote disarmament and nonproliferation. Additionally, the production and use of toxic chemicals for warfare can have significant environmental impacts. The release of toxic chemicals into the environment can cause long-term damage to ecosystems and wildlife, and can also impact human health and livelihoods. Efforts to prevent the production and use of toxic chemicals for warfare must also take into account the potential environmental impacts of these chemicals. This includes the development of strategies for the safe disposal of chemical weapons stockpiles and the remediation of contaminated sites. Furthermore, the promotion of sustainable and environmentally friendly practices in the chemical industry can help to reduce the production and use of toxic chemicals for warfare. This includes the development of safer and more sustainable alternatives to toxic chemicals, as well as the promotion of best practices for chemical production and management. Another challenge in preventing the production and use of toxic chemicals for warfare is the involvement of non-state actors. In recent years, there has been growing concern about the potential use of toxic chemicals by terrorist groups and other non-state actors. Unlike states, non-state actors may not be bound by international agreements and norms, and may not have the same level of accountability or transparency. This makes it more difficult to prevent the production and use of toxic chemicals by these groups, and highlights the need for increased cooperation and coordination between states and international organizations. Efforts to prevent the use of toxic chemicals by non-state actors must also take into account the potential for dual-use technologies. Chemicals that are used for legitimate purposes, such as agriculture or medicine, can also be used to produce toxic chemicals for warfare. This underscores the need for increased vigilance and monitoring of the production and distribution of these chemicals. In addition to the potential use of toxic chemicals by non-state actors, There is also concern about the potential for accidental releases or spills of toxic chemicals. The production and storage of toxic chemicals for warfare can pose significant risks to workers and the surrounding environment, particularly in regions of conflict where infrastructure may be weak.